Welcome to the third event of our 2025-2026 season. My name is Steve Davidson. I am the chair of Agenda Alexandria at present. For those of you who don't already know this, Agenda Alexandria is a nonprofit whose mission is to put on events like this, informative panel discussions that typically address controversial or challenging topics, but we do it without taking sides. Our objective is always to have a balanced panel and to do this through a moderated discussion. Our topic last month was called, Is Civil Discourse a Dying Art? And that is a subject that is very close to what we are all about. And we had a phenomenal panel and an amazingly informative and thought-provoking discussion. If you haven't already seen it, I encourage you to go to youtube.com/@AgendaAlexandria. So it's just one word, at Agenda Alexandria. You'll see actually many years worth of presentations. Just click on the thing for the 2025-2026 season, and you will see that video. In addition, you'll see a video recording of our first of the year, which was about school budgeting and the challenges associated with budgeting in a politically charged climate. A couple of ground rules. This is not a town hall event, but you're encouraged to ask questions. And the way you do that is writing them on the index cards that our board members will be circulating. I'm not sure who's got the cards right now, but okay, they'll be coming around. Write your questions down legibly, keep it short. They'll be passed up to the moderator, and the moderator will either interleave them with the questions that he has already prepared, or save them for the end, depending on the nature and the context. We don't take questions from the floor. Okay, that's ground rules. I just want to thank our sponsors. You see them up there, Zebra Simpson and Atlantic Union Bank. And so, without further ado, I will turn it over to Rod.
Thanks, Steve. Hey, everybody. This is a new venue for us. I happen to like it on first blush. I think it's a nice space and the sound's good. But more importantly, we have a very interesting panel tonight of exceptionally talented and informed people to talk about this topic of aging. Are you ready? I, for one, never thought I was ready. And I'm still not ready, but I'm already old, like many of the people I see here. But we don't have a lot of people here under 50 in the audience, which I kind of expected. But anyway, the way this is going to go, as it always does, is I'm going to let each person on the panel introduce themselves, say a little bit about why they're here, just for a few minutes, and then I'm going to start asking questions. And as Steve mentioned, in between, as we get questions from the audience, I'll ask those that are salient and that are legible. So, Mark Twain, of course, is known for talking about all kinds of things in his lifetime, and there's one quote about aging he was well known for. Hell, it may not even be attributed to him, actually, but he said, "Do not complain about growing old. It's a privilege denied to many." And those of us who are here in this room realize how privileged we are, because I'm sure we've known people in our lives who were hoping to get to the point where they could be considered older and still accomplishing their lives, but they, for some reason, just, the Lord didn't make that happen. So we're here to talk about what we can do as we age to not just be vibrant, but be productive and contributing members of society. Having said that, I'd like to ask each of the panelists, starting with Mary Lee Anderson on the end, just sort of, Mary Lee is, I'll just say, is the head of senior services at Alexandria. We have Heidi Travis, who's works for ElderTree Care, which is a national for-profit organization that helps steer people like us into places where they can have questions answered about aging and health and finance. And then we have Chris Leighton. He's an attorney who's well known for his ability to help puzzle through legal questions that confront people as they age. Many many questions that people have never asked themselves before, and they're faced with maybe only in a crisis. And lastly, I want to introduce my friend, Larry Lipman. Larry is a longtime journalist, award-winning journalist. He was president of the National Press Club, which is where we know each other from, but he spent a number of years later in his career working for AARP, writing for them about issues regarding aging, and he still speaks to groups like this on behalf of AARP, in particular about questions having to do with online fraud, security, things that can trip us up as we get older and we don't know what's going on the internet. So, without further ado, if each of you could just spend like maybe 2 minutes telling us who you are, and then we'll get into some questions. Mary Lee, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Mary Lee Anderson. As Rod said, I'm Executive Director of Senior Services of Alexandria. I see some familiar faces here, so I'm preaching to the choir, but we are a local nonprofit. We've been around for 57 years. Most people know us because we deliver Meals on Wheels for the city of Alexandria. We do that 365 days a year, so if you're looking for a volunteer opportunity, when Gail retired, we snagged her in to deliver a Meals on Wheels immediately. So we'd be happy to provide you all. Frank's delivered meals as well. So many people know us for Meals on Wheels, but we also do home grocery delivery. We manage the DOT paratransit program for disabled individuals in the city of Alexandria, low-cost transportation to get people where they need to go. We have a very robust speaker series events every month with a different topic that we think it's important for seniors to know about. And then we also have a senior ambassador program. We train individuals to represent their community, and we share information with them every week so that they can get it out to their community and tell people about all the programs and services that are available to them. We work in close partnership with the city's Division of Aging and Adult Services, and I'll be talking about that a little bit, I think, a little bit later. But appreciate the opportunity to be here and to share some really useful information for those of us that are getting older and want to stay in the community and still be safe and active.
Thank you. And just I want to say, if for some reason at some point you can't hear one of the speakers because they're not close to their microphone, just raise your hand and we'll know to get them closer. What?
I'm raising my hand.
Oh.
Do I have to go all over again?
No.
It sounded pretty good.
You were good. Heidi.
So my name is Heidi Travis. I'm the Executive Director with ElderTree Care Management. Most people don't know what care management is until it comes upon them. So what we do is we work with adults. I work with individuals from 17 to 106, and we work with them on their journey. That can be a medical crisis. That can be that you're aging and you want to know about aging in place in your home. You're looking at what that transition looks like next. Because care management looks about what you need today, what you need tomorrow, and what does it look like down the road. We've been around for 21 years. We come from all different backgrounds. To be a care manager is a board certified position. We do a preceptorship, but we come from different backgrounds, whether that be social work or nursing, occupational therapy, therapeutic recreation. Those are our lenses that we bring. And our team works very collaboratively in Virginia, Maryland, and DC, but we also consult nationwide. So, and I've been with ElderTree for 9 years.
Thanks, Heidi. Chris.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Leighton. I'm a partner at Hughes & Leighton, which is an estate planning firm here in Old Town. When people ask me what I do, I say I'm an estate planner, because that's really the fun part. That's what I enjoy doing the most, and that typically involves working directly with individuals and helping them navigate their estates, planning everything for the future generations, seeing around corners based on their goals and issues. But the reality is, the textbook answer is I'm a trust and estates lawyer. So that's what all the courses in law school are called. That means we are trained in, of course, developing the estate plan. That's the fun part I mentioned earlier. But more often than not, we're also accountable for understanding how the administration of an estate looks after the fact, whether you've done any planning or not. We also do a lot of work administering trusts, right? And that's a major distinction I'll be talking about a little bit later. And just about everything in between. I've been doing it for about 15 years. I started out actually as an active duty Army JAG officer. I did a lot of this work overseas, working for folks, active duty, spouses, civilians, DOD employees, and the like. And we have been in Old Town specifically just for the past 3 years. I had been out in Fairfax, part of a larger boutique estate planning firm, and my partner and I decided to come here and do something just a little more focused on the planning side of the house. But like I said, every good planner has to understand exactly what happens at the end of the day, whether you plan properly or not. So that means we essentially work hand in hand with clients, call them fiduciaries, right? Executors, trustees, administrators of estates as they walk through probate, or if we were fortunate enough to avoid probate, as they administer the terms of a trust. Naturally, in between there is dealing with seniors, because we work for folks between 18 and 106, right? You need to be 18 to do any of the stuff that we do, but generally, we really have an initiative where we try to get our arms around seniors and help them understand some of the common issues that are uniquely approaching for them, ways to plan around it, ways to get the whole family involved, potentially, and really help folks understand the different ways, depending on their income or their appetite for certain levels of sophistication in the plan, different pitfalls that might be there, and ways to navigate them with just a little bit of planning. So that's what I do.
Thanks, Chris. Larry?
Good evening. I'm Larry Lipman. I'm a volunteer with AARP Virginia. I'm a former editor at the AARP Bulletin, a former editor at AARP The Magazine, a former reporter at Cox Newspapers Washington Bureau, a former adjunct professor of journalism at George Washington University, and a former president of the National Press Club. In other words, I'm a has-been. But I'm on the Speakers Bureau for AARP, and I give 3 talks which to groups, that some of which are seniors, some of which are local groups such as a Lions Club or Rotary Clubs. One is on cybersecurity. I am not an expert, but I have kind of learned a little bit. Another one is on fraud. None of us, I'm sure, have ever encountered any fraud solicitations. And on separating fact from fiction online, which is the main one that I give. And I'm happy to talk about all 3 of them tonight.
Super. Thank you very much, all of you. Let's start out by getting a snapshot of what the cohort of seniors in Alexandria looks like. Mary Lee, you sent me pages of information on this subject, but if you could just give us briefly what, out of our population of nearly 160,000, what the senior cohort looks like. Is it growing? And if so, by what rate? And if you know anything about the demographics of the senior population in terms of race or income, I mean, are people staying here longer? And will that cohort grow?
Well, as you said, there's just under 160,000 people in the city of Alexandria. About 20,000 of them are 65 or older. So about 13% of the city's population are older adults. And that is the way that the federal government breaks it out. In Alexandria, actually 60 is the cutoff for being considered a senior, so it's a little bit larger population for us. But the stats indicate that we've got about 13%. Of those, the stats that we look at are the number of people that are where English is their original language. About 70% of the population are English speaking, and after that it's Spanish speaking. We have about 15% that speak Spanish, and beyond that it's a mixture of languages, with Amharic, the language that's spoken in Ethiopia, and Eritrea being the 3rd largest spoken language in the city. Other interesting stats, I think, are in terms of disabilities. There's about 6,000 older adults who report that they are living with a disability of some type. That could be their hearing impaired, their vision impaired, they may have mobility issues, diabetic, a heart condition. So it's a long laundry list of the things that we start dealing with as we get older, but fairly significant population. So those are the main stats that I have. In terms of whether our age group is growing, interestingly enough, the group that is growing are the much older people, people 85 and over, are staying in the community, and that population is growing. So I think many people are like my husband. He doesn't want to leave the house. He wants to stay where we live now, and that's what we're going to do. And so I think there's a large group of people that are in that position right now. So we try to make sure they can do that for as long as possible and as safely as possible.
Thank you. Just based on what little research I did before coming here, it seems like the concerns of people of an older generation are really threefold. One is money. The second, maybe first, is health. How do I stay healthy? And the third is just how do I maintain a contributing, vibrant lifestyle, do the things I've been doing, and maybe learn new things. Are those fair things you want to hear about? Yeah? Raise your hand. Yeah, those are good issues, right? Okay. Well, let's start on that. Larry, you do a lot of you speak to a lot of groups, as your fellow panelists do. But I mean, what's their chief worry? Is that, geez, I don't know how to work this new app, or I'm getting these things that look real online, but they think they want my money. How should people learn to train themselves to separate kind of the wheat from the chaff? I mean, is there something they can do? Does AARP offer any tools for people to do that?
Yes. The AARP now has a campaign called Pause, Reflect, and Protect. We're flooded, all of us are flooded with so many times, with so many people trying to reach out to us. And the key to fraud is, if you didn't initiate the contact, it's likely a scam. Just think about that for a minute. You're probably not going to fall for a fraud if you initiated the contact. But so many of us, I just got one that just before I came here saying, hello, how are you today? Area code 617. I don't know anybody in the Boston area. Do you think that's a scam? Right. So they're trying to prey on our fears, unexpected contacts, heighten our emotions. Something's happened. Maybe have people heard of the grandparent scam? You get a call from a grandchild who's in, Bolivia, in jail, and is embarrassed to call their parents. So if they are reaching out to you, but even more local, if there's all kinds of people that are trying to get to you. So pause before you act. Think about it. Does this sound like it's legit, or does this sound like it may be somebody trying eventually to get your money? And then protect yourself. Don't respond, right? So I'm not going to respond to this. I get 2 or 3 of these a day. We get calls all the time from people pretending to be somebody else. Hi, I'm from the Social Security Administration. Hi, I'm from Medicare. We want to send you a glucose monitoring test. All you got to do is give us your Medicare number. So we're bombarded constantly. AARP has a Fraud Watch network, so it's aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. I urge you to go on there. There's a podcast. There's all kinds of tips. You can sign up for our newsletter.
Let me ask, not just you, but the other members of the panel, how much do these come-ons from fraudulent parties who are looking for your information or your money have to do with appealing to people's, maybe they've suffered a loss in their community, maybe they lost their spouse, maybe their children have moved away, maybe they're no longer connected to their profession, obviously, or maybe they're not so active in their church anymore. Are these frauds approaches meant to, and let's say if you don't have a caregiver, and maybe you can address that, Heidi, I mean, are these meant to sort of make you want to have a response where you want to have a connection? And I guess some of these are better than others, these scams. I mean, do you ever run into that in the business you're in, Heidi?
So as care managers, we work with individuals that come from all different backgrounds, right? And some of our care managers, some of our clients, they live with their spouses. But sometimes these scams come in the form of a very lonely person and a romance scam. And I'm always, the families will say, I'm so surprised. I had someone where she was a financial advisor, and she got caught up in a romance scam. And
Define what a romance scam is.
so there
What
are
does it look like?
scams where you can be approached. There's one that's called the oil rig scam, where the gentleman works on an oil rig and he needs money so he can come and see you, and he can't cash his paycheck. And, or there's the grandparent one, there's the Social Security one, there's you owe a bill, there's taxes, IRS, there's all different versions of them. And so we do the same thing where we sometimes we have to get the authorities involved. The other ones that can be scams that are not on the phone are the ones that ring your doorbell. So they're, sometimes they call them the wood chipper scam. Someone, if you pay me, I'll come into your driveway, and you write the check and they never come to do your driveway. They, do the trees, whatever it is. So I just encourage you when these things happen to take that pause, take that beat, give yourself a moment, do some investigation. I got 2 of them today. 2 people want to reside in my house if I just, accept the check for it. So
It's the perfect time of year.
I know. There you go.
Well, let's see how common it is. How many of you in the audience, raise your hand if you think you've been scammed in the past 2 days? Been approached, not successfully scammed. Well, yeah, a lot of people, obviously. So, Chris, I know you do estate planning and trust and stuff. I'm sure people who are your clients may come to you and say, God, I've had this problem. What can you help me do about it? Is there anything people can do once they think they've actually fallen off the cliff and fallen prey to a scam? Do you advise on that at all?
A little bit. Honestly, when that happens, I tend to leverage someone like Heidi, like a caregiver. We work together. We actually met in the field, so to speak, in one such matter. But I mentioned the fun part of what I do is the planning, the wills and trusts. But as it relates specifically to elder law, elder care, it's a lot of planning around things like conservatorships and guardianships. Again, these are the equivalent of probate, things that you could avoid with just a little bit of careful planning. And oftentimes, folks do lose their capacity. And that doesn't have to mean full-blown loss of capacity, inability to do anything for yourself. It just means you are especially susceptible now. And maybe you're just not in the best position to make the best decisions for your financial well-being or physical well-being. And by kind of encountering that and just embracing that and coming to the table to plan, you can start marshaling your team, right? Well, who would I want making these decisions for me at that point? That is typically done in one of 2 documents. A durable financial power of attorney. That gives agency to someone to stand into your shoes for your physical assets. I'm sorry, I should just say your assets. And literally that enables that person to be your agent, your attorney, in fact, to conduct business on your behalf. The other one is for your well-being, and that's an advanced medical directive. It's called many things, a health care proxy. But that's the document where you start thinking, who do I want making decisions about my physical body if I can't? Making decisions in the ICU, or if I do want to age in place, engaging the home care providers. Maybe it's time to go to assisted living. This is the person who's going to sign that paperwork and be beholden to the Goodwin House and also be your personal advocate. So I think, Rod, to answer your question, when people start to feel exposed in that regard, we have those conversations and make sure we start to contact the people that can help us. And if you're not lucky enough to have those really close, trusted family members right around the corner, so many of us don't, that's when oftentimes we do turn to agencies like that.
Well, thanks, Chris. We have a question from the audience just came in, respecting the power of attorney. And I think it's a good question. Does a medical power of attorney take precedent over a spouse's wishes for a patient if it's contrary to power of attorney? In other words,
Yes.
So how does is that true nationwide or just in Virginia or?
I can't speak for all 50 states, but all 50 states do have, and DC have a statute that basically says, well, if we don't have any documents, what's the priority list? The degrees of kinship of people who can step in and make decisions. If you are uncomfortable with that, or you think some people are better suited to be higher up the list, or geography dictates that those people are nowhere around and wouldn't be serviceable in that situation, you put that document together, which is where you dictate who's going to make the decisions, and that now would trump any default statute.
Right, the Healthcare Act. So if you didn't have a document, I believe it goes spouse. What's after spouse?
Children.
Children.
Parents, siblings, much like the intestate statutes.
So Heidi, in your experience, is it often necessary to referee the difference of opinion between someone who has power of attorney, let's say it's a child of an older person, and their spouse doesn't agree with the power of attorney's directive? Does that happen a lot?
So I have a lot of conversations. So our team is 24/7. So those documents, your power of attorney, your medical power of attorney, if you have to blow the dust off of them, it's time to go see an elder law attorney, go see Chris, because sometimes we wrote them a long time ago. Sometimes they're written and perhaps you named your spouse and your spouse is no longer living and you haven't redone them. So I can't stress enough the importance of getting them done or looked over. But a lot of times I'll be in the ER or I'll be in the hospital and I'm having those conversations where I have that advanced medical directive and, you know, maybe at this point you don't have capacity, and I'm saying to your spouse, 10 years ago when he did this, this is what he wants, because we have to have, there's a lot of emotionality that can go with it. One thing that I often recommend, and is that when you do name someone, maybe write them a letter and tell them to seal it and put it away for the moment they have to step in, where you say, thank you so much for doing it. These are my wishes. Have conversations with the people who you have named as your agents, so that you don't come as an impasse. But yeah, I mean, you want to make sure that your voice, your documents are you're naming someone to be your voice when you can't use your own voice.
How valid are concerns about sort of the common identity theft issues that occur, not just affecting seniors, but everybody? I mean, that's something that you read about a lot, and there are a lot of people who are making money on trying to sell you services to protect your, whatever information. I mean, Larry, is that something that is sort of overblown as a phenomenon? Or
I wouldn't say it's overblown. No, identity theft is a very real issue, and one of the things that we urge people is try to protect your identity. Don't be giving out your information. Be careful when you're using public Wi-Fi. For example, every time we go to the airport and we've got nothing to do for the next 3 hours, let's get on the the dullest Wi-Fi that may or may not really be the dullest Wi-Fi. Maybe it's somebody else's. And so people are trying to get your identity all the time. That's why I get these calls giving me free glucose monitors. They're trying to get my Social Security number. They're trying to get my Medicare number. So it's out there. And I've just anecdotally heard, once they have stolen your identity, it's a real nightmare. So be careful about what you're putting out there and where you're kind of transacting business. Don't be on your bank account when you're at the airport.
I'm sure those people fall prey to some of these approaches because they're tired. It's a moment of weakness. They're not thinking clearly. But are there tools? Are there actual tools that can be subscribed to or downloaded or gotten from AARP that'll sort of just prevent these from happening in the first
AARP
place?
does not provide the tools, but we urge, first of all, if you don't have a password manager, you probably ought to get one. If you're like me,
describe what that is. Describe what that is. So not everybody's password is their
you
dog's
were writing
name.
down your passwords, on a Word document or something, and every time you had to do a new password, you just updated that Word document, or you were using the same password for just about everything, and somebody got a hold of those. So there are commercially available password managers. They will create a password for each entity that you use where you have to sign in for a password. So AARP recommends Password Manager. If you haven't updated your antivirus program on your computer, pretty much every computer now is sold with an antivirus program. But usually that's only good for 1 year. So make sure your antivirus program is updated. There's Norton, there's McAfee, there's all kinds of programs there. I'm an Apple user. I'm getting things every day from Apple saying, this is a way to basically eliminate yourself from everybody's data. Frankly, I haven't done it yet, but I probably ought to do that. There's all kinds of ways that you can protect yourself. As I say, AARP.fraudwatch network has all kinds of resources where they'll tell you, they don't actually sell the products, but they'll give you the idea that you need to get something like a password manager.
So Heidi, when it comes to protecting yourself or protecting a parent who may not be entirely able to do it themselves, I mean, what's the greatest challenge to people? Is it finance? In other words, are some of these protections costly? Or is it simply having the right advice from companies like yours? I mean, what's the number one challenge for people who want to protect themselves from these kind of vulnerabilities?
If you're talking about financial vulnerabilities, I think Larry's spoken really well for that. I think if you want to protect yourself even more, there's some other things you can do. You can go home and you can do this week. One is, if you don't have it, get yourself a File for Life, put it on your refrigerator. File for Life is where
What do you, a File for Life?
File for Life. It's a red, you're going to fill it out, you're going to put your information on it, you're going to list your medications, your emergency contacts. The fire department, the EMTs, they know to look for it there. And that's going to be the grab and go that's going to go with you. Some people even put a copy of their insurance cards in there, because if you have an emergency, that's something you can do right away to protect yourself. Because as we age, our goal is to be independent and autonomous. So what are ways that we can do that? That's one thing that you can do, right? Some people will recommend getting a fire safe. Put all of your documents in a fire safe, or another way, where are your documents? Have you provided the documents that you've named people in to those people? Because if you haven't given your medical power of attorney to the people that you have named, when the emergency comes, they won't have it to provide, and the hospital is going to ask for it. So as a care manager, I carry that with me, but I'm not with everybody. So that's another thing that you can do. You can go home, you can do, and that protects you in an emergency to have somebody that can speak on your behalf.
Rod, if I can add to that, if you live in Alexandria or anywhere in the DMV, really, I'd also strongly recommend that you sign up for Smart 911. It's a national service. It allows you to go a step beyond what you're describing, putting something on your fridge, because if you have a fall when you're out going for a walk or you're in another town, that's not going to do you any good. But if you go online, the city has paid for all of us to be able to subscribe to Smart 911. You put all of your information in there, not just your medical information and what medications you're taking and your emergency contacts, but also if the EMTs are coming to your house and you're not able to come to the door, who's got a key, or how can they get in if you're not able to help them do that? Is there a pet in your home that you want to make sure they know about? Anything you want an EMT to know when they're coming to take care of you and you're not able to communicate, you put in there, and every 6 months it'll send you a text and say, is your Smart 911, have you updated it to make sure that the information is current? And the other advantage is if you are in another part of the country, let's say you're up in New York to go to a show, and you slip and you fall and you hit your head, when you get the EMTs come to take care of you, New York also participates in Smart 911. All of your information will be in there too. And the only time anybody can access that information is when it is triggered by either your phone, your cell phone, or your private phone. So your information's not out there floating around except for the EMTs when they're coming to take care of you. So if you do nothing else after you leave here tonight, sign up for Smart 911.
So Mary Lee, if I am I am a Luddite, I've never heard of Smart 911. I'm sure some people here haven't. What is it? Where do you find it?
You go online and you type Smart 911. Just Google Smart 911.
It's a national system?
Yeah. Every municipality has to sign up for it. So I don't know if it's available in Davenport, Iowa, but it's available in almost every major city, and certainly in this DMV area.
Okay, I want to stay with you for a second. One thing we talked about before preparing for the panel was the challenges that are faced by, what's the term? Is it solitary agers? Solo agers.
Yeah.
People who are maybe have never been married or have lost their partner or their spouse, and all of a sudden the people they relied upon all their life are not there, and they may not have children or children close to their home. What particular challenge do they face in terms of aging in Alexandria? What kind of services do you direct towards them to help them feel sort of safe and protected and cared for in the community?
Well, I think, the key is to, know your neighbor and make sure that you're making those connections, but also to set up the legal protections that you need so that you do have somebody that has agreed to take responsibility if you are incapacitated.
And is that a power of attorney?
Well, it goes a little bit beyond that. I mean, it's not just power of attorney, it's also who's going to have your advance medical directive, who's going to make all of those decisions for you. But really, you need to build your village. You need to build your network. So whether you might want to join in Alexandria, you have At Home in Alexandria. I'm looking around to see if I see any members, which is what called a neighborhood village. You pay a relatively modest membership fee on an annual basis. It allows you to call people to help you with, do your grocery shopping, take you to the doctors, maybe help you if your computer's not working the way you want it to. But it also has all kinds of social activities. So, as you retire and you get less active professionally, we tend to want to stay home, or at least I do, and read a book and maybe not get out as much as I used to. You've got to kind of step beyond that and make sure that you're staying involved and you have those people that you can call on. I'm getting cataract surgery at the end of January, and my husband's going to take me, but I just took a friend last week to her cataract surgery. So you want to have a network of people that you can count on, as well as having the legal things in perspective, particularly if you're solo aging, and there's a large population in this city because of,
But the senior services, your group, actually help people make those connections.
Sure, yeah. I mean, one of the things that we try to do is do exactly that, connect people to resources that are available to them. So, I'll get a call from somebody saying, I just moved to the area, I don't know anybody, what are my volunteer opportunities? How can I get involved? And you'll see up front on the table there, I've left flyers from Volunteer Alexandria. There are all kinds of ways to volunteer in our city, and there's some that are tailored specifically for older adults who might, want to do different types of things than a younger adult. There are also, support services. If you're solo aging, you want Meals on Wheels. There's no income threshold for that. If you're solo aging and you're homebound in Alexandria, you can get it at no cost to you. It's subsidized by the city 365 days a year. Home grocery delivery service we provide, and the city is great about providing transportation. As we get older, everybody wants to stay independent and drive. We're only 15.5 square miles. We're not a big municipality, but if you want to go anywhere in our city, either on the Dash bus or if you have some kind of disability, you can go to the Dot Paratransit program. It's free. There's no cost to use the bus in the city. There's no cost to use the Dot Paratransit program. And it's very inexpensive to go to Fairfax or Arlington or even DC through the Dot Paratransit program. So, often you hear people, I'm trapped, I can't drive anymore, or don't feel comfortable driving. There's so many solutions here in the city that can make that not as big of an issue. So take advantage of everything that's available to you. And Rod, you asked me to bring copies of this.
And they're back there.
There's a whole big stack of them back there. This is produced by our city agency, the Division of Aging and Adult Services, and it lists everything from Smart 911 that I just told you about to all kinds of support services that are available, not just through the city, but through other nonprofits and agencies. So grab one of these, and then you can grab one of our trifolds too that'll tell you what we do. It's a very good place to be an older adult, except for our property taxes. Other than property taxes, this is a really good place to be.
Thanks, Mary. Well, the audience is getting very engaged. I'm getting a lot of good questions here. I'm just going to rattle some. Oh, do you want to say something?
I just wanted to say one more thing, because it kind of piggybacks off of what you said earlier about solo agers and also the 911 link is, when you go home, I always think, what is your plan if you're a solo ager? If you had an emergency and you couldn't dial your phone, what is your plan? Because a lot of times everyone just says, well, I would call 911, but what if you couldn't dial 911? So are you going to wear a smartwatch that has a fall detection, that if you fall will automatically call 911? Because the Apple Watch, I don't work for Apple, but Apple Watch is one that does it. Are you going to use some other type of device? But you need to have like contingency plans. What are your plans? So Think about that. What would we do if we had to dial 911?
And while we're piggybacking, let me just say on those two main documents, right? The durable financial power of attorney, this is the instrument that obviates the need for a conservatorship if something were to happen and you didn't have the document. And then that healthcare power of attorney, also called an advanced medical directive. For solo agers, these can be uploaded for free into a statewide registry so that, God forbid, something happens and you are wheeled into that operating room, ANOVA's going to clack away at the keyboard, and if you're in there, they're going to pull your document right there, right? This isn't the kind of document we wear around our neck or going to have in our back pocket at all times. So don't be afraid of technology. Some of it's good, and some of it's there to make sure, particularly for solo agers, there's access to information to these key documents that we really need in those moments of potential crisis.
Thanks, Chris. I have a question for you in a second, but one just came in for Larry here. Larry, is the dark web real? Should we be worried about it? And if so, how do you sort of monitor or clear your data from the dark web? Is that a concern for people of our generation?
I'm not an expert on the dark web. I stay out of that neighborhood.
Okay.
You know, I don't think most of us have to worry about the dark web. What we have to worry about is the stuff that we see on social media that looks real, but it's not. And it's gotten so incredibly advanced just in the last 6 months. And I'm seeing all kinds of posts that look like they are legitimate. They look like people you know, celebrities you know, news people you know, administration officials you know. And
Family members you know.
And they are eventually trying to sell you something. So when you see these things, stop, reflect, protect yourself, check it out. I just saw one a couple of days ago. There was a social media post, and it was allegedly RFK Jr. talking about something for people with high blood pressure that the pharmaceutical companies don't want you to know about. And Elon Musk, through his space program, has developed this program using black salt. Does anybody know what black salt is? Anyway, you know, and it goes on for 20 minutes. And then they're going to try to sell you something. But it looks so incredibly real. If it looks too good, check it out. Do a search. Did RFK ever say anything about this? Did Elon Musk say anything about black salt? And if the search comes up negative, if there's nothing there, then question. You know, that post that looked real, that, you know, you could have sworn that was really the person, don't necessarily believe it. What you see, you know, we all grew up seeing is believing. It's just the opposite. Seeing is no longer believing.
Thank you. Chris, here's a question for you. What are the 2 or 3 most common mistakes in estate planning you see, and what suggestions should everyone in this room think about having in place?
2 or 3. The first one is waiting too long to do it, honestly, and I say that at the risk of...
At what age should you start doing estate planning?
18.
Oh, come on.
So I'm also a member of the Alexandria Bar, and several members of the board of directors and I are going to local high schools, including this one, in the spring. The program's called So You're 18. We're sitting down with every high school senior who's about to turn 18 with one of the judges and one of us board members to sit down and explain to them that their world is changing legally, that all of a sudden mom and dad can't make decisions for you, again, without these documents. And so I do say 18, and I say it seriously. You must take ownership and responsibility of your legal rights as soon as you're 18. And there's just not a presumption that anyone else can step in and do it for you. When you rely on that presumption, too often we have to go into court and get either guardianship and or a conservatorship. These things are to be avoided, and they're avoided quite easily if you just understand your rights and make elections in writing in advance. That's number one, is waiting too long, and then it happens. It's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to me. Another one would probably be assuming that estate planning, particularly trust planning, is for rich people. It's absolutely not. We all think of, oh, he's the trust fund kid. Sure, those are irrevocable trusts. Those are tax planning instruments that we also prepare for people who are extremely wealthy or extremely sensitive to creditors or thinking about Medicaid or have special needs dependents, things like that. That's a different world altogether. A basic revocable living trust, which is an affordable thing, is for anyone who simply wants to plan for their incapacity, avoid probate, or take control of assets if they're afraid the person they would leave them to is either too young legally to own them, right, because our kids can't own property until they're 18, or it would be more of a curse than a blessing to them, right?
So what's the advantage of a revocable trust? Can you explain in practical terms what
Sure.
that is versus just dying with your will?
Sure. A will, and these have been around since Roman times. They absolutely work. A will is a very important document, and it is a first-class ticket through the probate process. But make no mistake, you're going through the probate process. A revocable living trust...
How long can that take?
On average in Virginia, about 2 years. We have had probates go 4 decades. We just recently filed the 42nd and final accounting in an estate. So it depends on the terms of the trust, of the will. If the will has trust terms under it, well, now the probate will extend for the life of the trust terms that are baked under it. So suffice it to say, a will is an excellent, and it's absolutely better than nothing. And it's going to appoint the executor who's going to be the quarterback and run with the ball through that gauntlet. It's also going to do important things like waive bond if necessary. It's going to make careful disposition of property. It's going to account for taxes. It's going to account for that asset or that, or if not him, then her. That's all great. And if you don't do that, then you're going to default to a Virginia statute, and that just might not be what you wanted. And it's going to be expensive and involve additional supervision, because probate's essentially about transparency to ensure that the fiduciary, the executor, doesn't cheat creditors or the beneficiaries. So that's why a county level official is scrutinizing every penny in, every penny out of the estate in a formal accounting process every year. A revocable trust is an alternative to a will that essentially serves as a will substitute once the settlor, the creator of it, passes away. But by transferring your assets to this thing, which is you, it's your alter ego, it uses your social security number. It doesn't change your relationship to the property at all once you've done this thing. And you continue to tweak it and live with it your whole life, quite simply. But once you've done that, then none of your assets are going to be, for lack of a better term, stuck in your sole name when you pass away. They are in your trust, which means there's no need for probate. Probate is the administration of assets in one's sole name. So by putting all of your assets into the trust, you have completely avoided probate. And some things don't need to go in it, but a 401k can designate the trust as a designated beneficiary, maybe after the spouse or after the children, what have you. Life insurance policy can designate it as a beneficiary. Your checking account can just be payable on death to my trust. By registering everything in such a way that it speaks to your trust at the right time, not only does it not inconvenience you at all while you live, but then there's just simply no probate at all.
So it sounds like the trust you're talking about speeds up the process of disposing of assets to the people you intend them to go to.
Oh yeah, I can't put a finer point on that. So whereas it would take, on average, let's just use Fairfax County, and it depends how busy the probate office is. Typically, we see 3 to 5 weeks delay just to get an appointment to be qualified as an executor. And that's the moment in which you pay a check for probate tax, which is 10 cents off every $100 in one's estate. There's typically a bond, which is a life insurance policy on the good behavior of the fiduciary. And you've got to get the death certificate, make sure that's correct. And then we have to get the original will, if we've got it, submit that. Then we start the process. A well-done trust with a designated successor trustee after you pass away or lose capacity, that successor trustee takes action immediately. They do it privately. They do it the next day. And now this individual is in charge, is holding title to the trust assets as a fiduciary, working for the best interest of the beneficiary. And for us, while we're alive, it's us. So if you're in your late 90s and you start to lose your capacity, you can either resign or be declared incapacitated, in which case the successor trustee steps right in and now immediately takes control of these assets for you. You remain the only beneficiary. And so often we see that's where the child, the oldest child, or the spouse, or the best friend, or whomever, they come right in and say, wow, Chris really should have gone into assisted living a long time ago. We're at a crisis point now. Oh, thank goodness, this trust is funded with the house that he shouldn't be living in and has the ability to sell the house, immediately get liquidity to put me in assisted living. Or sell the securities portfolio to get liquidity to bring in-home caregivers in if I am going to age in place. And that kind of immediate flexibility makes all the difference. And I think what a lot of people appreciate is that it's completely private.
Is it expensive?
It depends how sophisticated the instrument is and how varied your assets are. You know, different assets can have different paths to the trust. If you own a business and you want to put the business in the trust, I need to study the operating agreement to see what the rules are so that I can conduct that transfer. Your home, that's a deed. We pull your deed of record from the public record. We prepare a new deed, we get it recorded. But if you own 11 pieces of real estate, it starts to add up, right? So it really does depend. Everyone's favorite lawyer answer, it depends. But a very simple, like mine, I have a very vanilla revocable trust, my spouse and I, and it's for our 3 kids, excuse me, who are too young to have property if we were to pass away now, legally. Also, we wouldn't want them to have all the benefits of life insurance proceeds and 401ks and what have you when they turn 18, which would be the default. So we have a very vanilla, I call it, plan. And that would run most people, one piece of real estate transferred in, retitling of a few other assets. That's typically between $3,000 to $5,000 all in, but it can depend very much if you have very sophisticated assets.
This is a very, I think, thoughtful question, and it's based upon the source is a book called Dying Too Soon from the Northern Virginia Health Foundation. And the questioner says the opposite of getting old is dying prematurely, say before 75. And the risk of dying prematurely in Alexandria, based on this study, differs more than 4-fold across the census tracts in the city. Between 2015 and 2019, by the way, whoever wrote this, good for you, the premature death rate among black residents was 170% higher than the rate among white residents. So, Mary Lee, I mean, you're sort of in the global sense, looking at seniors' conditions of the city. Is there anything that the city can do or nonprofits can do to try to help level out that disparity in terms of death rates among people in the city based on race?
Well, I'm part of the strategic planning committee for the current community health improvement program that's being run by the health department and the Partnership for Healthier Alexandria. And we're currently conducting community input groups throughout the city, but particularly focused on the Landmark area and on the Arlandria area where those real discrepancies are found. It's particularly the immigrant community in the Arlandria area and the West End, also immigrant community, are the ones that are most severely affected by the disparities in the health program. So I'll share with Agenda Alexandria after this seminar information about how you can provide input. There's actually a third section that's focusing on mental health as a primary concern for the entire city, not just the West End and Arlandria. But the health department is very focused on trying to level the playing field so that all Alexandria residents have the opportunity to live as long as other residents. But just like anywhere else in the country, there's definitely disparities depending on your race and your economic stability.
You mentioned mental health. Is there a particular concern that you have or others on the panel have about how the city can detect, a slowing mental health abilities of people as they age? I mean, we all probably know someone who's had some slippage. It could be a parent, could be a spouse, could be a good friend, but oftentimes there's such gradual processes, and that before you know it, there may be an inflection point where they can't take care of themselves. Yeah. I mean, what are the warning signs that people in that village that you talked about, Heidi, can see and what they can do to respond to that to help that person stay healthy?
Yeah, you're talking about dementia.
Dementia, not mental health, but dementia?
Yeah.
There's different, mental health, dementia is an issue that faces more and more younger people. It's not just for older adults now, but I think you need to look at mental health in a broader perspective, and certainly the health department and the CHIP is looking at issues of depression and suicide across all age ranges. And actually the percentage of suicide for older adults is extremely high. It's probably the largest percentage of any age group, which most people don't realize. But as far as dementia is concerned, Alexandria is a dementia-friendly city. Going back about 10 years ago, the mayor, city council, Goodwin House, and other nonprofits like the SSA have come together to try and educate the public on what is dementia and what is not dementia. I mean, simply as basic as, you know, if you've lost your keys and you find them an hour later, that's not dementia. If you find your keys in your freezer, you need to start worrying about it because you're putting things where they don't belong. In terms of family members, I think the overlying message related to dementia is the sooner that you address the issue, the more opportunity there is to not, if it is dementia, you're not going to cure it at this point, but you can slow down the progression of dementia depending on the type of dementia that it is. And so recognizing the symptoms and accepting that something has changed, particularly when you turn 65 and you're eligible for Medicare, go to your physician and ask them to do a baseline mental health assessment. It is covered by Medicare. You can have it done every year. And even if there's not a darn thing wrong with you, if you have the baseline health assessment, you have a baseline. And so if your spouse says to you, you know, I think something might not be right, you can go back to that baseline and compare yourself. It's not a lengthy test. I made my husband do it and sat there and watched him, and the doctor, you know, said, yes, this is a good thing for you to do. Your wife is not, you know, driving you crazy for no reason. And he is just fine. But I would encourage everybody get that baseline health assessment, mental health assessment, so that you are in a position to have family provide you with the support that you need. But again, Alexandria is a good place to be an older adult and to take advantage of the services. We have wonderful caregiver support group and an adult day center over on Jefferson Street at the Lee Center that provides respite for families who are caring for someone living with dementia. I have a whole one-page sheet, if anybody wants it, that says, here are the local resources available for caregivers of those living with dementia. The most important thing is to accept that it's happening and get the support that you need sooner rather than later, because making believe it's not there is not going to help anybody.
Yeah, Heidi, I'm sure you want to talk about this. How much of your company's work has to do with sort of dementia care? And also, someone's asked a very simple question. How much does ElderTree care cost?
Okay, so ElderTree, people are always like, because we have care in the name. So what a care manager is if we have any music lovers, it's like the conductor of an orchestra. We know the music and the cadences and the nuances, and we are cueing things in as you need them. Sometimes people bring us in pretty early because they want us just to kind of check in with them periodically. We work with solo agers a lot in that way. But dementia, I want to talk about dementia. So dementia is something we do a lot with. So I don't know, I don't want to be misquoted, and I know I'm being taped, but it was either 60 Minutes or CBS This Morning did a fascinating excerpt on early detection. And there is a blood test that's being worked out of the University of Washington in Missouri. Is that the one? What was that? Okay.
St. Louis?
St. Louis. There you go, in St. Louis. And there's a blood test they're working on that's going to come down the pike that's going to be just like a cholesterol screening that's going to help screen for dementia. Now, dementia is a big umbrella, and under that umbrella is about 110 reasons you can have dementia. And it can be vascular. People often will say, well, is it Alzheimer's? Well, that's one of the things that can cause dementia. There's also something called pseudodementias, and that can happen when you're taking a certain kind of medication or as we age when we get a UTI. The thing about getting that early diagnosis is what we know is that getting things in early is really important. As we age, things you can do to even protect yourself are things like staying active, using your brains. But part of protecting our brains is also protecting our health. So go to your primary care physician, go to your cardiologist, get the blood work, get your hearing checked. One of the things that we know is that individuals with hearing loss, it impacts them cognitively. You know, I wear glasses, so if somebody said I had to wear hearing aids, I'd be like, all right. So don't be afraid of getting those things, because if you aren't hearing, you're missing parts of the conversation, and that can make it look like either you have a cognitive deficit or it can impact you in sort of empowering one that exists there. So how care management works is care managers are a fee for service. And
What's the range like there? Is it a
anywhere
monthly
from-
cost or an hourly cost? or-
It's an hourly cost, a lot like our friends in the legal world. We charge in 6-minute increments. So that means if an hourly rate was $100, then we would charge, $100 would be for the full hour. 6-minute increments is what you charge in, so you only charge for the time that you're providing it. Because we do after hours and on the weekends, 365, if I'm responding at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night, that's going to be a time and a half.
Larry, this is a thoughtful question, I think, as well. Good audience tonight. So obviously you've talked a lot about, and you do talk a lot about the pitfalls of social media and misrepresentation and how to discern that. You've got X, you've got Facebook, Instagram. Why isn't there, or could there be, or should there be, a social media platform for people of a certain age that requires sort of higher levels of security, registration, where you have more of a trusted community? In other words, that doesn't exist today. You have to essentially buy into one of the existing social media groups that are now more and more prone to AI and misrepresentation by the kind of people you've talked about. I mean,
I don't have the answer to that.
would that be a good idea?
Maybe. But, I think one of the reasons I like being on social media is I'm exposed to so much. I'm exposed to different age groups. I'm exposed to different points of view. But there's so much out there that you really have to be careful with now. As I say, seeing is not necessarily believing. And what we're seeing, there's a whole new trend of posts that look like they are about some celebrity who has done something. And you'll see a post that says, this celebrity said such and such, and it set the social media world on fire. And it's really shaking up the world. Be careful with that. It's almost always a fraud. Check it out. There's a phrase in journalism, which I'm sure Rod knows. If your mother says she loves you, check it out. If you see it on social media, check it out. If you see somebody has said something about somebody else, check it out. Because so many times what we're seeing is it's just not true. But I like to be exposed to it all, so I don't know that I would want to,
To narrow yourself into another community.
Yeah,
So what someone else asked, does anyone ever go after the fraudsters? I mean, is there any way of enforcing this? I mean, is there...
Well, yeah. I mean, there's the FBI, there's the consumer protection agencies. There are all kinds of places. AARP has something called Fraud Network, Fraud Hotline, Helpline, Fraud Helpline, not Hotline. And you can just look it up, AARP Fraud Watch Helpline. You can report fraud. They'll give you suggestions of where to report it. Has anybody heard of the juror scam?
Oh, yeah, you have to pay a fee, you have to pay a fine because you didn't show up for jury duty, right?
Yeah. So I didn't know anything about the juror scam until about a few months ago when I was asked to give a presentation on it. Juror scam, unlike a lot of them that are coming through in the mail or email or text messages, often the juror scam is somebody calling you saying, you missed jury duty and we're about to issue an arrest warrant for you. And the only way you can avoid this is to pay immediately. If you hang up, we're sending the deputy out to arrest you right now. And unlike a lot of these scams where you can tell the person is somewhere on the other side of the world, these sound like they're right here in Alexandria. So be careful about those juror scams. They are a scam. Hang up.
Great, thanks.
Mary Lee, isn't there something in the city of Alexandria for frauds and scams and things? They can contact the city of Alexandria?
Well, they should call the police department.
Yeah,
You
the
call the
police department.
non-emergency number. I mean, that's what we advise anybody who's been
Right.
subject to a scam. The police department encourages you to report that to the non-emergency number because they want to track the types of scams that are targeting our community. And if you follow Alexandria Police Department or the Alexandria Sheriff's Office online, Gail's nodding because she used to work there. My daughter works there now. They regularly post, be aware this type of scam is targeting our city right now. So, I think the biggest thing that you find with people that have been targeted with scams is there's some sort of shame about it. There's embarrassment that you've been targeted and it's because you weren't on top of things. Don't feel that way. The best thing that you can do is to let people know that it's happened so that you can warn other people and they can not be subjected to the same, harassment basically that you were. So it happens to everybody, and I cannot tell you how many people I know who are very astute and are not living with dementia, who are, just got caught up. They figure out what your soft point is and they go after it. So sharing the information is really important and reporting it to the police or the sheriff's office.
I'm glad you mentioned that. AARP's been stressing that, people are saying, well, if I say that I was scammed, my kids are going to put me in a home, and people are going to look at me cross-eyed. We are trying to get beyond the stigma of saying you got scammed. My college roommate, one of the smartest people I know, was scammed for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Some kind of a real estate scam. I mean, it happens. And, but the best thing you can do is let the authorities know what's going on. Because these scams are evolving and they're changing all the time. The Nigerian prince who's got all this money to send you, he's long dead. Instead, we're getting all kinds of different scams, and they're evolving all the time because that's how these people make their money. So if it's not working this way, they're going to try something else.
Thank you very much. We're almost at the end of our program. I want to thank you all before my last question for each of you. And it's a very simple question. If you had to give a piece of advice to the audience, like what's the most important thing they should do to succeed at aging well? Let's start with you. Or anywhere.
Okay. If you want to stay in the home that you are living in right now, whatever that home is, take a look around your environment and say, how would I survive in this house if I broke my foot, if I broke my leg, if I had a serious injury or illness? Could I live in this place as it is right now? And be realistic about it. This is true, I broke my foot and my ankle last March. Had a bad fall, just a random accident. I could not go up and down the stairs. I live in Rosemont. I have a 4-story house. And fortunately, my husband doesn't want to go anywhere. I told him right before COVID, great, take out a home equity loan. We have an accessible basement. I lived in the basement for 4 months. But I could do that because we had taken a hard look at our house and changed the doors so they were accessible. We made sure that the bathroom was accessible. We had everything in place so that it wasn't a whole lot of fun, but I was comfortable and I was taken care of. So take a hard look at your environment. If you want to stay there, figure out what you need to do. Just put grab bars in if you do nothing else, and get rid of those little area rugs that are floating around your hallway, and put lights on your stairs so that you can see when you go down to the bathroom or whatever at night. But make sure you've got grab bars, make sure you've got railings, and get rid of your little area rugs.
Thanks, Mary Lee. Heidi, based on what you do, what's your best piece of advice?
So we will actually come in, our OT or our care manager will come in, and we will go through your house. We'll take a tour with you, and we will come up with a report and tell you what you need to do. And if you hire someone to do the renovations, make sure that they are CAP certified, that they understand. Not that they just can do it, but do they know how to do it so that it is ADA compliant? A lot of times in our colonial homes or older homes, measure your doorway when you get home. There's a lot of bathrooms that were built in the 60s and 70s with 21.5-inch doors. Wheelchair will not go through that. So doing it now, it becomes much harder when you're doing things in crisis. So I would say that's a great model. And then if you think someday down the road that at some point, if we can't stay here, what does that look like? Start thinking about what that does look like. Because you could put a refundable deposit down. You can tour communities now and put a refundable deposit down. And when you're ready, and you can stay on that wait list, and they'll call you and you'll say, no, I'm not ready yet. And maybe you'll move to the bottom, maybe you'll stay at the top, it depends. But at least you have a plan of where you want to go, because we want you to be able to go somewhere you'd like to go.
Thanks, Heidi. Chris, what's your best piece of advice?
You know, I say sit down on a Sunday morning with a notepad and make 2 assessments. What are my goals in terms of your legacy? And I don't mean like,
Speak up.
I don't mean that in an egotistical way, but when we talk about planning one's estate, what are your goals? Is it have anything to do with taxes? Probably not for most of us. Do we just want to make it very smooth for those we leave behind, right? What is it that we care most about in terms of our estate? And then the second one is assess your village. I tell people I like the deepest bench I can possibly get. And if cost is a consideration, as it should be for all of us when one goes to do planning, you can dramatically reduce your cost and the efficiency of that experience by having the answer to those 2 assessments up front. Because then with minimal time and probably minimal customization, you can find yourself in a situation where you have a perfectly customized estate plan that accounts for your goals, accounts for your village, and maybe there's shortfalls in that village. And the attorney can help you understand some alternatives to that. But you can get all of this done in a way that's very quick. People go, oh, I don't want to do estate planning. It sounds like it's going to take forever. Well, I said from flash to bang, typically takes 2 to 4 weeks is all it ought to take, right? And then you can have not only a complete estate plan, but all those disability or incapacity planning documents we discussed as well. And those are more important, I think, honestly, because they are there to take care of you while you're still alive. And also in such a way that it doesn't create a big dumpster fire, right? If you wait too long and now we have nothing in place, now the nephew from Philadelphia is coming down to initiate a conservatorship. Things like that simply don't need to happen. If you can just kind of answer the question of what are my goals with my estate? And who have I got around me that can help me? Who would be good at this job versus that one? And I think if you can fill out that one pager on a Sunday morning with a cup of coffee, you can dramatically reduce the cost and burden and also really increase your peace of mind.
Super. Larry, last but not least, what's your one piece of advice you want people to take away from this panel?
There are all kinds of scams out there, but they have 3 common elements. The first is it's an unexpected contact. It comes from the outside, you're not expecting it. The second is that it heightens your emotion. There is something you're either afraid for yourself or for a loved one, and your emotions are kind of in overdrive. And the third is they try to impose a sense of urgency, even if it's a long-boiling romance scam that you theoretically develop this relationship with a person over a period of time. At some point, there's going to be a sense of urgency. You got to pay the bill now, or we're going to cut you off, or we're going to arrest you. We're going to cut off your utility. We're going to arrest you. Or the guy out on the oil rig is, in trouble, or your grandson is in jail somewhere. All of them have those 3 components. When you sense that that's going on, AARP says pause, reflect, protect. Protect yourself from that. Push it away a second and say, really? Is this live or is this Memorex?
Thank you. I want to thank all of you because we got some really good questions. I hope you liked the discussion. Let's give them a hand.
This is Agenda Alexandria, a nonpartisan organization that takes a look at the issues without taking sides. Whether it's the city's sewer system, education, public safety, climate change, or perhaps a look back into Alexandria's history, Agenda Alexandria is here to shine a light. What makes the organization so successful is our people. The people who run it, our panelists, our moderators, and of course, our members. Agenda Alexandria is a member-funded organization, and we invite you to become one today by visiting agendaalexandria.org.